Hello class, and welcome to my presentation on career and technical education publications, CTE Journal and Techniques Magazine for our mutual class with Dr. Smith on successful schools for young adolescents. My CTE Journal volume 5 number 2 that I chose was a recent version on fall 2017's edition. It's more of a peer-reviewed scholarly publication. Its editor is James Smallwood, the professor, Dr. Smallwood. The associate editor is Edward J. Lazaros. Both professors, Dr. Smallwood originating out of Indiana State University and Dr. Lazaros presiding out of Ball State University. This is where I ended up after much review, centering my research article on. Techniques Magazine is the other publication. I went back a couple months to February 2018. I wanted to center on this, volume 93, number 2, because I found it to be particularly interesting to me because it's centered on classroom recruitment. This is actually the national magazine for the Association of Career Technical Education. It's more of a teacher-driven collaborative work. The managing editor is Leah Milgram out of George Washington University. Aside from her duties as editor, she's a manuscript editor and writer. The publisher is actually executive director Leanne Wilson, who's a graduate of University of Maryland College Park, but she's also a long tenured member of ACTE, acting as the corporate financial officer prior to taking on the executive director post. This is the magazine that I ended up coming away with my practice article on as well. The similarities and differences are stark between the two. As I mentioned earlier, the CTE Journal is somewhat more of a scholarly read. It comes out quarterly as opposed to Techniques, which is monthly. The publication circulates widely in research and study environments. It's great for research for those studying to become a teacher or already involved in teaching, but maybe working at the graduate level. Techniques is much more rich with graphics and various sections that apply themselves to different areas of the trade, which makes me think of it as a trade magazine of sorts. The skills of the trade, it's like a one-stop shop for a number of different approaches in which one could learn to apply different methods in the classroom. There's a lot of ideas and a lot of rich content here for not only teachers and educators, but also principals, students, and parents. I would go so far as to recommend it to anybody who's interested in career and technical education. The two featured articles out of the CTE Journal reference Miss Carla Sager. She's actually out of the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, and upon my research, I found a program coordinator out of the Business and Marketing Education Department there. Stephen C. Tate, who wrote Strategies for Increasing Female Participation in Tech-Based Classes in CTE, which turned out to be my research article. He's out of Liberty University. There are a number of CTE Journal authors that are listed here. Wide range of those underscored authors in terms of their subject matter. A lot of it was very data-driven, exploratory type work, as the titles would indicate. The Techniques Magazine featured authors were also consisting of a couple of different options here that I was considering for my practice article, and I ended up going with Mr. Mark Perna's article on changing the narrative to communicate a competitive edge. Mr. Perna is the founder and CEO of Tools for Schools, and this article dealt with, how to dispel myths, with respect to the CTE classroom. Annabella Diaz and Jeremy Fasone also wrote an interesting article on how to better prepare our students' literacy in preparation going into post-secondary school while at the high school level. And both played an integral role in collaborating on this story. Additional Techniques magazine authors include the following. And as you can see from these titles, comic books for CTE program promotion and CTE data use support, it was very much a theme with the February issue of that of promoting one's classroom, and it was in fact in February CTE month. Multiple feature articles are promoted out of different departmental sections like features up front and in the back. So again, as I alluded to earlier, my research article stemmed from the CTE journal authored by Stephen C. Tate, article named Strategies for Increasing Female Participation. And this particular article was of utmost interest to me because it's actually been an area I've been working on for the last couple of years, not only with respect to female students, but also with respect to other low number populations of students in my classrooms. My classrooms are mechanical, architectural, design based. And what was interesting about this article is the finding that while secondary and middle school enrollment in STEM-based classes is lower, the last 2 decades have shown an increase in female students enrolling into the workplace and or post-secondary school at the college or university level. So I found that interesting as to why, and the article delved into that a little bit further, in addressing strategies to include female students' needs. There's not enough of that in the middle school or high school level. There's less differentiating between how to approach the subject matter in ways in which female students feel included. And we need to change that. We also need to change not only the method in which we deploy the material, but also we have to educate those in counseling and in teaching and in administration, as to how best to address this declining number. Counselors often feel, and Mr. Tate polled over 280 counselors in Michigan for this study, that there's no reason why female students shouldn't be in CTE classes, even those that are previously thought of as male dominated, but they don't necessarily push them for a career in that arena, thinking that, okay, it fills an elective, but it's not something that necessarily needs to be looked at long term, which is really unfortunate, maybe speaking to the low enrollment, because female, just like male students, if they're interested in a particular area, they want to be encouraged, not discouraged from pursuing that angle. So yeah, very interesting article, data driven, and at the end of the day, what it amounted to is we need to educate those involved in counseling and teaching and administration to not only dispel these myths, or rather stereotypes, but also to help promote the classroom environment for female students. My practice article centered on the article by Mr. Perna, again, the CEO for Tools for Schools, on his article in Dispelling Myths within the classroom, or in other words, as he entitled it, Changing the Narrative to Communicate a Competitive Advantage. He speaks to the fact that many students and parents, for that matter, look at CTE classes as a singular pathway, meaning this is a pathway to a career placement. It's in the interest of you to go right into the workforce out of high school, and that's it. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. You're actually positioning yourself to be that much stronger candidate for the workplace, yes, by being involved in CTE classes, which apply that of your learning in academia, core classes like math, science, but moreover, it better prepares you not only for a workplace position, but also for college. So it's not an all or nothing proposition insofar as going for a career path versus college. It also improves the marketability of students coming out of high school for a would-be employer to consider the hands-on technical application of the academics that he or she has already learned. And it also, CTE classes go a long ways towards providing soft skills. learning how to present yourself, learning how to lead, learning how to speak in front of others and work in groups. Those are the types of talents that can only be learned in the CTE classroom in applying the STEM subjects that they've already learned and better preparing them for the workplace. The best way you could promote this competitive advantage is to bring in guest speakers that represent those that have lived this out, you know, in terms of providing themselves with opportunity post-secondary in the workplace and college. And I'm an example of that, and I speak to it all the time. And you can bring in past students, and you can use social media to promote it as well. My future article would be more research-based, and it would be pulling from the CTE journal style of writing, I think, in large part, and it would involve how do we strategize for sake of inclusion of not only female students, but also students from other walks of life that do not get the representation and the encouragement to take your classes as others. And then once they're in, how do we sustain them to continue down this pathway? So it's basically inclusion in the interest of a sustained enrollment, meaning we need to address those that are represented in low numbers in your particular field of study, in addressing why, and then targeting ways in which we could, once recruited, how we can diversify the instruction. Once we've started to diversify the instruction in such a way where we can rein them in all the more, we start to look at a collaborative approach to marketing the classroom with other classes involved. Why not take on subject matters that leverage our relationships with the math science departments, as well as the other CTE classes in our department. And at the end of the day, it's about centering the instruction on the students. I think if we flip the classroom, or, you know, allow the students in a variety of ways to take ownership of the content area, that's going to allow them that much more of an opportunity to sustain in your course of study. And that's what we're going to continue to do in my class. I know we're going to continue to recruit, and we're going to use it in the form of messaging through social media, through guest speakers, through multimedia outlets, through business partners, and breaking down these stereotypes in the hopes of an increased enrollment. I thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you very much.